Good morning, everybody. As I drove over here this morning, I was hit by a certain sense of everything. Not melancholy, not hope, not only resilience, battle cries, frustration, everything, but just a sense of everything that this community has gone through, and those of us who have had the pleasure, the honor to serve, not just in the days following, but in the years since. It's a lot. The best thing I can do today is invoke the voices and the work that I have seen on the ground by you all, those who were fire victims, who took on the responsibility to not stay in victimhood, but to become survivors. And as my dear friend Lisa Frazee said at one point, victims to survivors to thrivers. We're still in that process, aren't we? I look forward to coming to your new home. You're almost moved back in very soon, 5 years later. I called my cousin, Steve, and Michelle on the way in. Steve, I saw Jeff Okrepke here a little while ago. Jeff, raise your hand. Where are you at? Thank you for the creation of Coffey Strong, partnership with us. Thank you, Pamela, past president of Coffey Strong. My cousin Steve was a president at a time when Coffey Strong actually stopped its operations because it said, hey, we're an engaged community. We're going to continue to be an engaged community. But we have fulfilled our mission in terms of filling a gap when it was needed. I asked him, I said, yeah, I got talking points and things, but how are you today? Because he's not here. And he said, I'm doing what I need to do today. I'm not on social media, even though some people need to do that. I respect it, but I'm not on social media. He said, I'm cooking breakfast with my family, and I got some work to do in my yard and with my business. And then he said, the crazy thing about today is that today is the anniversary of a catastrophe. And he said, if it's all about resiliency, really that didn't start until tomorrow. Resiliency and rebuild did not start until tomorrow. Because it was, as you all know, whether you were in Mark West Estates, whether you're in Larkfield Estates, whether you were up on the hills, whether you're down here, it was chaos. And there's a reason that PTSD and trauma are real and are honored here in this space and in this community. The best thing I can say is that there was a lot of things that didn't go right 5 years ago. There's a lot of things that we as government and we as individuals had to take account for. There was a lot of readiness that wasn't where it needed to be. There were systems that weren't tried and tested. And we as public officials, as servants, have to tell you once again, I'm sorry. I have to honor that. I'm sorry we weren't where we needed to be to help you in that time. Many of you have looked back at me and said, yeah, but we weren't ready either. And that's why we've created COPE groups and CERT teams, and we've learned our evacuation zones, and we've gone and sat and advocated and told you what we need you to do more of and how you can represent us better. But after it all, the one thing I can say is that in those days is that we did have a common refrain, which was never again. That didn't mean no more fires, we know that. But it meant never again will we get caught on our heels the way that we were that night. In between 2017 and 2019, we knew that things had changed. The Kincaid fire came with very similar, strikingly similar ferocity as a Tubbs fire. We evacuated 40% of our community. That was hard. First responders were able to do what they were trained to do, what they knew how to do, not to respond in always a crisis, but to get there, get us out of the way, protect us, and defend our flanks. We call that a tale of two fires. We didn't have any loss of life. We lost 24 community members on the night of October 8th. We lost hundreds of homes, not thousands. I'll never forget sitting with a group of block captains that next morning over at our local assistance center. And I'm Sheriff, to you, it was the first time in quite a few years that I had sobbed, deeply cried. And it was because I looked at the block captains who had worked with me on recovery and resiliency over the following 2 years, meeting every morning, every Wednesday for, days on end through holidays to try and figure out what laws we needed to change to get rebuilt, what things we needed to do, how we needed to hold every agency accountable, bring in the post office so they give you your mailbox back, everything. And I sat there and I really felt like a failure because even though we had changed so many systems and we'd come so far, and I believe we are there as a community, as I look back on people who I'd come to know and love and respected serving, and I look back at them and I just said, we did it, but I still feel like we failed you, right? I still feel like we failed you. And the hard reality is one of them. Barry looked back and he said, I'd never ask for that night again, but these people in this room are my friends, and you're my friend, and we're on this wild, crazy, messy journey together. One thing I've learned from all of you, a couple things. One is that the only progress in this world is imperfect, relentless progress. A little bit every day. The other thing I've learned is that whether you were somebody who fought from day one to build your house as fast as possible, or you looked back at me and said, I don't feel resilient right now and I need to take some space to take care of myself, is that the only path is forward. So coming full circle, the other thing that my cousin told me this morning, he said, what's crazy is that we talk about recovery, but recovery is a process. And he says, we're still in recovery. It almost sounds like he said, I almost sound like I'm saying, I'm Steve and I'm a fire survivor. But then he did the math and he said, I guess I'm 1,825 days into recovery. And it made me really inspired to be alongside each and every one of you and work still to this day towards recovery. Richard? Shoot, every day still we're working on making sure that we don't get with the congressman and others get PG&E settlements taxed. And I want to thank them for there's so much more to do. I'm done. I love you. I hope to just continue to learn from each and every one of you. It's the honor of my life to have served with you and to be sitting here in this moment and look at my dear friend. Gone through a lot of highs and lows, Jessica Tunis, and see at the bottom of the list, Linda, and to be thinking about when we saw each other in the days following, your husband, and you were passing around the paper with your mom's face, trying to find her. We still have more work to do to honor their names. Before I read names, I just want to honor somebody who looked at me a long time ago, who's here with us today, and said, James, as you continue to champion resiliency, you got to stop every once in a while and realize that all of us have not been able to move on. That we don't look back on that night and see heroics. We look back on that night and we see pain that we have to live with each and every day. So when I say that, we have work to do and follow up. That's required. I want you all to join me in honoring not just the lives lived, but the resolve and the grace that still is waiting for the families of Karen Aycock, Michel Azarian, Carmen Berriz, Carol Collins-Swasey, Michael Dornbach, Valerie Evans, Mike Grabow, Arthur Grant, Suiko Grant, Donna and Leroy Halbur, Christina Hanson, Tak Fu Hung, Monte Kirven, Veronica McCombs, Carmen McReynolds, Lynne Powell, Marilyn Ress, Sharon Robinson, Chadwick Rogers, Marjorie, Marnie, Schwartz, Daniel Martin, Southard, Tamara, Latrice Thomas, and Linda Tunis. What we do from here forward is the only way we can honor them. Thank you, everybody.